This is the Ask Anything About Jewelry Marketing Clubhouse room where I am making myself available to take any sort of questions that anyone has about jewelry marketing. We actually had some people submit questions beforehand. So my assistant Katie will be presenting some of those when there's downtime or no one else has a question and I can answer them. I do want to make it clear that this room is being recorded. It's a little bit against Clubhouse guidelines, but if you make everyone aware of it, it seems to be okay. So I just wanted to make that clear. And yeah, I guess we can get started with Katie presenting me the first question that she has fielded from some of our audience members. So let me know what that question is, Katie.
All right, so one of the questions is, when doing email marketing, what are some ways to grab customers' attention? Because most customers on our email list don't always look at them and immediately trash, or they scroll through it and then don't act.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's a pretty common problem that I come across when working with clients. Most people today are inundated by emails in their inboxes, so it's a little bit hard to catch anyone's attention. A typical good open rate for an email marketing campaign in jewelry is about 20%. That's very excellent. So if you can think in those terms that getting 20% of people to open your email marketing campaign is good, it kind of might shift your focus on whether or not your campaigns are performing well or not. But to answer the question, how can we get people to pay more attention? Well, it really comes down to subject lines, because that's really the first thing that someone's going to see in the inbox. And a way that I really like to approach this is doing some A/B testing with subject lines. Some email marketing providers allow this in the subscription that you have. Others, they require you to upgrade in order to do A/B testing. And by A/B testing, I mean basically you just test different types of subject lines. So you can create 2 different versions of subject lines for your email marketing campaign, and then the email marketing provider will send half of your subscribers one version of a subject line and the other half of your subscribers the other version of the subject line. Then you can see over time which subject lines are performing best and kind of keep moving forward toward that direction. Now, it's always a little bit of a guessing game, and there are a lot of other factors that come into play here, like the time of day you send the email, the day of the week you send the email, even the time of year. During the holidays, for example, obviously it's going to be even harder to get noticed because everyone is sending their email campaigns around that time. So it is going to vary. It's not an exact science, but playing with your email marketing subject lines is a good place to start. Keeping them really short, to the point, trying to get creative with them, using calls to action, creating limited time offers or stating a discount or promotion right in the subject line. Basically just getting to the point of what the email is going to say. And that in itself is kind of an art, because you have to be able to communicate a lot in a few words. So subject lines are much more involved than most people think. You think that answers the question, Katie, or would you have any follow-up to that? Anything else you want to know?
That definitely answers the question. I feel like getting the subject line is definitely one of the top things that people look at, and if it's not interesting, then obviously people won't be clicking on it.
Absolutely. So what other kinds of questions have we gotten from followers?
Let's see. Okay, this one. How do I find good influencers that will be able to provide the results I want to accomplish, and what kinds of research goes into choosing an influencer?
Yeah, that's a great question. Influencer marketing is very complicated, and I think there's a lot of hype around it right now. People expect influencers to kind of work miracles for them. They think if they're able to pay the right influencer or land the right influencer that it will be like a brand changing experience. But that's not necessarily true, especially when you're working with bigger influencers who represent a lot of brands. But to answer the question, what goes into all of that? Well, first, you really need to know your target customer. So understanding like where he or she is spending the most time. Do they spend a lot of time on Instagram? Do they not? Who do they go to for like advice when they're making a purchase? Do they even care about influencers? Are they more likely to trust celebrities, or are they more likely to trust like a friend or someone in their community? So there's kind of a lot of foundational research that goes into that, that you have to do first. And then depending on what you are able to glean from that research, then you can kind of decide on how to start finding the influencers. So if it turns out that like, yes, you do want to find influencers on Instagram and you think it would be worthwhile because your audience would connect with them, you would kind of need to decide like, what level of influencer do you want? Like, how many followers? Is it a micro influencer or like a mega influencer? Do you want someone with a bigger reach or someone with like a more authentic reach? Oh, I see some people entered the room. Welcome. And if you do have a question or you want to be a speaker, just raise your hand and we'll invite you to the floor. And I do want to let everyone know that this conversation is being recorded offline. So if you don't want your question recorded, then maybe better to not step up as a speaker, but I just wanted to make that clear. So I was talking about influencer marketing, and so researching that, first you need to know how many followers do you want for an influencer, whether that's someone with a bigger reach who will definitely be more expensive to hire to represent your brand, or someone with a smaller reach but perhaps a more authentic engagement with their followers and someone more affordable. And there are definitely tools you can use to do this research, some paid tools where these companies already have partnerships with influencers or they have a database of people. So you kind of just input like the requirements that you have, and then they'll give you some recommendations and let you know how to contact these people. A lot of the bigger influencers are actually represented by management or agencies. So you wouldn't necessarily be communicating directly with the influencer when you are starting this relationship. If that's something that feels uncomfortable to you, then I would definitely recommend working with some smaller influencers. And then it's all about really communicating your needs to them. Like, they're definitely the creative person in this relationship, and they're the one who's going to be producing the content for you, but you're also paying them, and you want to make sure they're representing your brand accordingly. So communicating your needs, letting them know the type of content that you want, coming to a mutual compromise on, how to handle that relationship and the content creation. And ideally, I personally, when I do influencer marketing, I like to encourage my clients to focus more on long-term partnership / brand ambassadorships. So people who will be invested in the brand over the long term rather than just like doing one post here or there, which I personally don't find super effective unless you are a brand like Majori that has like an endless marketing budget and or a seemingly endless marketing budget and can just afford to like send out free products all the time to whomever they please. Most brands I know aren't like that. So it's better to be really strategic and choosy about who you are working with. Do you think that answers the question, Katie, or do you have any follow-ups on that?
No, I definitely think that was very insightful. I think you answered the question.
Yeah, it's a pretty big topic to unpack. I think there's a lot of moving parts, and it's not necessarily right for every brand either. That's kind of the tricky part. So, I think there needs to be a conversation about that first before anyone decides to really dive in. So anyone else in the room, if you have questions and you want to come forth to the floor, we can enable that. If not, feel free to keep listening. We already kind of have some questions banked from followers and people that I had asked before if they had any questions. So just let me know if anything comes up. But in the meantime, Katie, if you want to read off another question, I'm happy to answer it.
Okay, definitely. So this person said most people would prefer to shop for jewelry in a physical store. So how could I enhance my online presence and attract customers to shop online at my store?
Yeah, great question. And that's especially relevant in COVID times because, people can't necessarily get to the store, or maybe they don't want to go to the store, but it takes away so much of the experience of trying the jewelry, experiencing it in person. So what can you do to supplement that? Well, luckily, there are so many tools now. Like, the technology is actually crazy, like what you can implement on your e-commerce site to create that same or similar experience, especially with like virtual try-on tools. So I just demoed one the other day that someone was pitching to me that I thought personally was like the coolest virtual try-on tool that I've seen. So instead of like putting the product on some preloaded model or you uploading a picture of yourself, you can go on your smartphone, turn on like your front facing camera, and like live while you're moving around, you don't even have to stand still. It'll like put the jewelry on you. So it'll like put a pair of earrings on you or a necklace, and you can try it on like as you're moving. And it looks slightly cheesy because it's not real. Okay, it's not real. But hey, it keeps the customer engaged. It keeps the customer on the product page longer, and like you can have fun with it. And especially if there's a sharing element of it too. So if you can like share the virtual try on with your friends, that will also keep the customer engaged. So that's one way to kind of mimic the in-store experience. Also, like another thing people are missing from the in-store experience is interacting with salespeople, which is something I kind of miss. I mean, I like shopping. I like going to the store. If I need help, I do like interacting with salespeople. I used to work in a store doing jewelry sales myself back in the day, and I know what that is like for customers, and I know how much they depend on salespeople to help them make decisions sometimes, especially jewelry, and even more especially if it's a gift for someone. So in an online environment, that's definitely lacking, but there are ways to make up for that, especially live chat tools, which can easily be integrated with Shopify. And it doesn't, even if you are a solopreneur or a small business, it doesn't mean that you need to like stay up all night, like waiting to answer questions. There are like automated live chat tools also, so that it seems like someone is there and assisting you, but really a person will reply like for real when they're available. So whenever you're available to reply, but it makes the customer feel supported. I mean, I think in my personal experience, when I'm on an e-commerce site shopping and I have a question and I want instant gratification, I want to know right away like what the answer is, but I don't see any immediate way to contact someone, I get frustrated, and I usually leave the site because I want to know that someone's there to answer my questions when I need them answered. So I highly recommend live chat. Also, like making sure you have a good community management system or customer response system on Instagram and Facebook, because people will likely message you there. I think a lot of people message jewelry brands on Instagram asking them questions. Making sure that you are constantly checking your inbox so that stuff doesn't get lost in like message requests, and then a week goes by and you realize you didn't answer some customer's question. No bueno. So you need to have a system in place to manage all of that communication to make sure that your customers always feel supported. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I'm definitely the same way with online shopping. If I can't find an answer, I get very frustrated. So seeing the chat is very helpful for me, where I can ask people questions. And the mimic
Absolutely.
the
Yeah.
in-store shopping is really cool for me, because it's like I'm seeing more people do it, and it's like fun, and I'll stay on for longer trying on different things. And I've even tried one with furniture where I can see like a new bed in my room, which is fun and exciting since you can't really go in store anymore.
Yeah, definitely. It's all about just engaging the customer, and it's kind of like this subliminal thing. If someone has a good experience and they have fun, they'll be more likely to come back because they want to have that fun experience again. Like if you're making things difficult or challenging, then they're not going to want to go back to you.
Exactly.
Does anyone else have any questions that have come up? Just raise your hand and I will invite you to the floor. But if not, you can feel free to keep listening. We have plenty of questions to answer. So, what do you got on deck, Katie?
Okay, so this one is about content, and they said, I keep running out of content ideas and feel like my account is boring. What are some tips for creating engaging content, and how often should I be posting on social media? I don't want to annoy my audience.
Yeah. Oh boy. Content creation is a true grind, especially in this like digital world that we live in where everyone expects like new, fresh stuff all the time. And I definitely can relate to the fact that there's a lot of pressure to like keep creating new and interesting content. My suggestion is to try to get more mileage from your current content. So, what I mean by that is extending yourself in creative ways, possibly across multiple platforms. So if you had, say you had like a blogging strategy in place, which I know is like not super cool. If you listen to this week's podcast episode of the Joy a Jewelry Marketing podcast, my guest Jason and I talk about this, so there's a lot more information there about this topic. But let's pretend you had a blog post about a Mother's Day gift guide or something, because Mother's Day is coming up. You used some of that content to also film a short video of yourself, say on like Facebook Live or on Instagram Live. You also took that video and repurposed it on YouTube in a different way. You could make like some kind of graphic with like all your product pics in that blog post and then reuse that graphic on social media or something. So it's less about like churning out content as it is about being more strategic with the content you use and trying to really like wring every last drop out of your content pieces. I think that that's like a smarter, better approach, and it will keep you a little bit more sane. And I forget the second part of the question now.
The second one was, how often should I be posting on social media?
Yeah. Well, it's nice to do it every day. I think that when you post at least every day, it gives the Instagram algorithm a clue that you're active, that you're engaged. It kind of helps keep your engagement up. If you go too long between posting, it starts to look like you're more of an inactive account. However, that being said, if you can't keep up with creating content that you are able to post every day, I think it's better to engage on Instagram with other relevant accounts than it is to like try to churn out content all the time. So I think if you're gonna have to choose between the two and make priority choices, engagement is as, if not more important than the actual posting. Do you think that answers the question?
Yeah, definitely. And I also feel like if you don't have like content to post, posting stories, which are only there for 24 hours, could be useful too.
Yeah,
Just if
absolutely.
you didn't want to post every day, like on your feed.
That's a really good point. Yeah. And they often feel a little bit more casual too. So if you're into that kind of more like immediate content creation or like slice of life kind of content creation, then that's a better route for you. So I know Mary joined the floor as a speaker, so I'm assuming that she has a question and I would love to hear it.
Hello, Laryssa. So glad to see you here in Clubhouse, and I am sure everyone is going to love your advice and your tidbits of great information on digital marketing. I'm so happy to see you here. So
I'm
I'm here to
happy to
support
see you
you.
here.
Yeah, and I do have a question, and it goes back to what KT was saying about content, but generating content now with TikTok and Reels and now Clubhouse. I mean, how much does someone, how I'm a small business also in the jewelry industry, and so many of your clients, how much investment should we make in creating content using Reels and TikTok? Because it seems that is like the ultimate, um, the best solution for being able to gain attention from Instagram, from Google, from everything else. So I just wanted to see what your take was on that.
Yeah, it's a good question. And I definitely think it's overwhelming for, especially for small business owners who have limited resources. To me, it's always funny that, well, I mean, it's obvious to me why video has become so popular and important because it's super engaging. But it's difficult because video is not an easy thing to execute as like a one person. Like even in my journeys of COVID times, becoming more comfortable in front of video and like being more of a video presence, I have learned that this should be left to the professionals. And I am sorry that small business owners have to feel the pressure to like produce video content all the time because it's not an easy thing. And the trouble is that customers who aren't on the other side of that, like they don't know that. They just expect the content. They don't realize like what goes into it. So it's a challenge. And then in terms of like where you should be investing the time, I mean, it's kind of a tough question to answer in a general way. You have to kind of know, well, first, where your customers are spending time. TikTok definitely attracts like a certain demographic, the Gen Z, less like millennials and older. I mean, there are millennials who use it, but I would say it's more a platform for like Gen Z and younger. So if that is the type of demographic you're trying to attract, then I would say it is worthwhile being on TikTok. But if not, then I think it's just you would be overextending yourself just like for the sake of being on a new platform. And then with Reels, yes, there's definitely evidence that having Reels can help you like in the eyes of the Instagram algorithm because as Instagram has released this new feature and are testing it, at least at the beginning, they were prioritizing brands in the feed who were using Reels. So those like Reel posts would come up sooner in the feed than like regular posts. So the brands that were like early adopters of that had more of a priority to be seen. I also, it's like a whole new thing you got to learn. I mean, Instagram Reels is not the same as stories, is not the same as regular posts. There's definitely a learning curve there, and it requires a comfort level with making video. It
Definitely.
For a small brand, if you could find someone who was comfortable doing that kind of content creation with you and was like located near you so they could have access to your product, it might, and you had the budget for it, it might be worth like having someone do a reel a week just to like have that content. But you got to work within your resources also and prioritize, look at your web traffic, like where are my customers coming from? One thing I've been seeing a lot lately is an increase in web traffic from Pinterest, and nobody really talks about that. People are very focused on Instagram and Facebook, but Pinterest is a really big driver of web traffic. It's basically a visual search engine. People looking for products or inspiration, style, tips, and stuff, they will search on Pinterest and then find stuff, and it can potentially drive traffic to a website. I would say Pinterest is also like more approachable than something like Reels because it doesn't necessarily require you to create a whole lot of new content. You can repurpose a lot of the content you're already using on Instagram and Facebook. So it might be worth looking at that, like always going back to your web traffic and seeing where's my current traffic coming from, how can I build on what's already working, and maybe just like try not to stress too much about the other stuff because there will always be a new platform.
And I love it that you say that you can, you need to prioritize and don't put all your energy on so many different platforms, because that's that's the contrary of everything that we hear on all these channels that we try to get advice, is that you have to be multidisciplinary, you have to be on every channel, you're missing out on this, you're missing out on that, and that's just causing a lot of anxiety for small business. And we feel like that we're missing out, and that's that FOMO feeling, right? But it's not really, that's great to see that you can focus and still thrive, and focus on Pinterest, for example, just in Instagram.
Yeah, definitely. As a marketer and having to like stay on top of all the new platforms, I sometimes need to like sit and like take a breath because it's too much. And, even with this Clubhouse thing, I waited and like saw for a little bit. I know it's still really new, but I'm like, should I have a presence on this? The jury's still out on that question, but I'm open to like checking it out. So I think it's good to have like an open-minded mentality about everything and not be afraid of technology and new platforms, but like also be skeptical about like whether you really need it or not.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. That's really what I wanted to know. But thank you.
Thank you, Mary. I think I will take one more question and then we'll wrap up for today. So if Katie, you want to ask me one more question, then that will be it for today.
Okay, perfect. So this last question says, what are some of the best ways to connect with current and future customers about what they're looking for in our jewelry or for my posts like on Instagram or Facebook?
Whoa, sorry, can you repeat the first part of that?
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I kind of just like blanked out too. It was like, the question is, what are some of the best ways to connect with current and future customers about what they're looking for in jewelry or in my posts?
Oh, okay, yeah. So, I guess if you mean like using posts to get feedback on like how to best serve your customers, is that kind of what you mean? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Instagram is a good platform for that, especially in stories, because you can do like polls or like ask questions. It's a really good way to be super engaging, and it shows that you care about what your customers think and want. And I think that's always important to make decisions in your business about what your customers want. I'm actually working with a brand right now, and we're trying to like nail down taglines and language to use with this brand. And we have a few ideas. The client has ideas, I have ideas. We feel confident about like what we've brainstormed together so far. But then it came down to, okay, well, which direction do we go in? What do we pick? Well, guess who knows the best answer to that one? Your customers. So
Yes.
So we decided we're like doing a survey monkey thing to some of her like VIPs. We're also gonna do a poll on social media. She's gonna personally reach out to some of her customers, and we don't know yet what kind of response we're going to get, but it's really the only way that we can make a decision about anything, because otherwise we're just guessing, or we're trying to force something upon the customer that we think is like the best idea. So always defaulting to your customer is great. Even in regular Instagram posts, in your caption, you can ask questions. Questions are very engaging. Invite people to like give feedback in the comments. You could do that on Facebook as well. You can always do Instagram lives and have people like engage with you in real time. Invite the customers to like be active participants in the brand, because without their feedback and information, like, you really have nothing. You're really just guessing. So I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, it does. Surveys and Instagram Lives will definitely help engage customers and feel like they're included in their opinions and that they value them.
Definitely. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Katie, for helping me moderate. Thank you, Mary, for your question. Thank you, Jeannie, for listening. This was super fun. I think I'm going to try to do this every week, but, jury's still out on Clubhouse, so I don't really know yet.